require matters of investigation by An Garda Síochána. That hasn't stopped the Fianna Fáil leader from naming a private citizen here in the past in relation to the most serious of allegations, and nor does it stop the Taoiseach from asserting earlier that some people suffered mistreatment at the hands of members of Sinn Féin, or indeed the Fianna Fáil leader making similar assertions here. Let me also make it very, very clear that not only do victims need and require and have the right to support, but no one should be pressurised. No one should be subjected to any campaign of harassment online or in any other way. And I also have read that in the media that allegations from a Louthman, Paddy McGahan, are going to be rehearsed in a television programme this evening. So let me be very, very clear. The agencies to deal with allegations of abuse are An Garda, the social services, or the PSNI and the social services. Now, from what I have read, Paddy McGahan clearly feels badly let down, and the Fianna Fáil leader and the Taoiseach does make the assertion that some of these abusers were associated with republicanism. Well, that's the case. They didn't do that in our name. They didn't do that in the names of the people who suffered for the Republican cause over a very, very long time. Paddy feels badly let down. Nothing I may say may change that, but I have to say that it is a matter of very, very deep regret for me, and he does need support and he does need justice. I'm assured, contrary to what the Fianna Fáil leader says, that when this case was brought to the attention of local representatives, that the victim of the alleged abuse was advised in person and in writing to go to An Garda Síochána. Now, last November, the First Minister, Martin McGuinness, wrote to the Taoiseach and he proposed the establishment through the North-South Ministerial Council of a clearly defined all-island process to deal with the issue of support mechanisms for all those who were victims of sexual abuse during the conflict. Now, we know that 1 in 4 suffer abuse, and we know that it's mainly by family members, and we know that we have been remiss as society in dealing with these issues, and so on. But the Maria Cahill revelation brought a very clear focus on those who had been abused during the conflict and either were not properly dealt with by the state agencies, the statutory bodies, or indeed in some cases by Republicans. So Martin set out objectives in this letter to support victims of abuse in all communities, to ensure greater access to counselling and other supports for victims, to facilitate victims and survivors in assessing the justice system and making official complaints. The anonymity, the confidentiality of victims and survivors who did not wish to be identified, we believe, should be acknowledged and protected. And he also argued that the promotion of existing helplines, these are very ABC steps that can be taken, and if necessary, dedicated hotlines north and south to facilitate victims and survivors who wish to come forward. Now, the Taoiseach hasn't responded, in my opinion, the way that he should to these propositions. In fact, Martin McGuinness has written to the Taoiseach on 3 occasions. This is now March. This proposal was put in November, and Martin has expressed, the Deputy First Minister has expressed his concern at the lack of engagement by the Taoiseach on these proposals. And I do think, and I have no objections whatsoever, and neither should I have, to these matters being rehearsed in this chamber. But I do think that we need to move beyond the commentary, and we need to actually develop mechanisms and processes which deal with this very unique. There's a lot needs to be done in terms of the funding of rape crisis centres and providing protections and so on and so forth, but just in this particularly unique circumstance of what occurred during the conflict, we need to move beyond commentary and move to put in place mechanisms. And if the mechanisms that the Deputy First Minister are putting forward are not sufficient, if we can't get a north-south focus on this beyond what we have at the moment, well then bring forward some other proposition to do it. I actually think that it's very, very disappointing that this hasn't been responded to in the way that it should. When we had the debate here last November, I was very critical of the way the government parties and the Leader of the Opposition dealt with the issues, and I concluded by saying, I suppose I should not judge them on what they say on this particular debate, as we will all be judged on what we do to protect children and the rights of women in the future. And I think that we stand open to the accusation that we have not dealt with this issue in the way that it should be dealt with. And I would ask the Taoiseach once again, the fact that the Deputy First Minister has not got even the courtesy of a response to what was a serious proposition by him, and this is for all the victims, all the survivors. I obviously have a very, very clear focus on those who may have been victims of those who purported to be Republicans. But there are lots of other folks outside of that who also need support, and that we haven't moved between the two administrations, North and South, to do that, I think is a matter of some disappointment.
Yeah, well, what I have responded to Deputy First Minister McGuinness. What he asked for was a process to be put in place here. I assume that means that there would be an end to that process in any individual case, and that would mean, presumably, that the person or a person would be brought before the court, person or persons, and let the law take its course. If an allegation is made about sexual abuse, either in an individual case or with an individual over a period of time, that the process would be that if that person decides to speak out, that they would be able to do so in a protected way and not be pressurised in any form subsequently, but that the situation from a legal point of view would be able to be followed through, and perpetrators, if allegations are made of them, be brought before the authorities and a decision made whether they're guilty or whether they're not. Now, as I said, there are two independent investigations going on at the moment with the DPP and the Ombudsman's Office, and the Minister for Justice is briefed by the Garda as needs be, and whatever information comes to the Department of Justice. Now, I understand that, and I wouldn't want to prejudge Cairncora, a television programme which I understand is taking place this evening. When the person involved here met with the Garda superintendent back in October of last year, he was advised of the supports available to him, and he subsequently made a formal complaint to the Gardaí, and a criminal investigation was launched, and that investigation is ongoing. My understanding is that the person involved said that he had been abused by a member of the Provisional IRA who stayed at his family home, which was then deemed to be a safe house, and was threatened with his life by the abuser. And he has also, I understand, alleged that his brother was abused, but he declined to be public about that allegation, and has not pursued a formal complaint with the Gardaí. But he does say that he alleged in the early 2000s that he brought that matter to the attention of a local councillor, who arranged for what he called a process to be put in place to deal with the allegation and to punish the alleged abuser. He and another victim, his brother, were brought before a number of Republican members, including a named person who was a former member of the Provisional IRA, to be interviewed about their allegations. He also says that he was offered a choice of punishments for the alleged abuser, including that he would be killed, and opted to have him exiled. Now, this is a kangaroo court which operates outside the jurisdiction of a democracy and which operates outside the remit of the law of the land as we know it. I don't know whether Deputy Adams has any information or has been given any information about this, but this kind of situation is not tolerable at all, and goes back to what Maria Cahill made public, that hers was not the only case. So if we're dealing with a process with these very serious allegations, then I'm prepared to work with the Executive First and Deputy First Minister, as is the Minister for Justice with her counterpart, whether that be through the North-South Ministerial or whatever. As I said, it's not as simple as it sounds to set up an institution covering two jurisdictions with different legal systems. At the end of the day, if people are abused, sexually abused over a period of time, threatened and pressurised, we have to have a system of law that can deal with that. If the allegations being made by this particular individual are correct, then this was clearly on the instructions of person or persons to have a court of punishment and interrogation, which has nothing to do with the law of the land. So, from my part in replying to Deputy First Minister McGuinness, there are those two independent operations. There is the TUSLA and its remit here. There's the cooperation between the Gardaí and the PSNI, the consultations between the Minister for Justice and the Minister for Justice in Northern Ireland, and the cooperation between the PSNI and the Gardaí, together with the respective departments. Out of that, I don't think you need an institution for cross-border justice. It seems as if the allegations made are that such an institution was set up illegally, without threats of death and exile and whatever, interrogation as a central core of it. If it's a process the Deputy First Minister looks for, I think that through all of these different elements of organisations and agencies operating strictly within the law, it should be possible to have a process of support generally for victims of sexual abuse in any community, but also for those who have the courage to speak out and give the details and circumstances and names in some cases of persons who are alleged to have committed these offences, and put that together. So I'm quite happy to speak to Deputy First Minister McGuinness, arising from my own response to him, to see how this might best be done. But that doesn't involve, getting into legalities about the different legal systems and how it might operate. If a young man or a young woman been sexually abused at Count Corla, in this case allegations about Republican abuse by persons who were members of the Provisional IRA, as I said, they have to carry that with them all their lives, and we should try every way we can to see that they get the support and counselling that they need and deserve, but that where allegations can be proven, that the law of the land takes its course in respect of those who might have committed those offences.
Deputy Martin.
Corla, could I just put it to you, Taoiseach, that accept your bona fides endeavouring to deal with this issue, but I do think, just to make a number of points, and you're correct in saying that in terms of the Paddy McGahan case, that you are talking about a safe house. I think Deputy Adams and those in Sinn Féin IRA would be very well aware of the circumstances of this for a long time, just as they were well aware of the Maria Cahill case for a long, long time, but choose to do nothing about either, or about the entire system. And it's all very well for Deputy Adams to say, we'll be judged in terms of what we do now or into the future. I would like to think that people would judge about what people did when they first heard of these cases, or what they did not do. And we know from the public record inside in this House that Deputy Adams himself has admitted, has put it on the public record. He accused me of putting it, or making some assertion about this earlier, and you. But actually it was Deputy Adams on the public record in this House said that the IRA, the Prison IRA, took actions in relation to abusers which involved keeping the crimes away from the authorities, that the IRA dealt with it themselves internally. And then he kind of said, well, that was unfortunate. They had no alternative. And then they put forward the untruth, that it was because of the RUC and all this kind of stuff. And if you go through all the sequences and all the commentary that's been made, there's a complete thread of inconsistency between what is said one week compared to what is said the next week. And that is why I think the bona fides of what Deputy Adams says has to be questioned. It's very difficult to take them on board, given his track record in response to these issues.
Sorry, Deputy, I have to interrupt you for a minute. This is question time, and yes. I'm in a very awkward position here. I understand the seriousness of the issues we're discussing, but I can't allow a situation where question time has been turned into a sort of a semi-court, and allegations are being made that I haven't. Sorry, please. I can't, allow a situation where in question time allegations are made, and they are allegations.
What allegations have been made?
No, allegations, of various acts taking place. Just be careful, would you please, because it's extremely difficult to chair a situation like this and to try and be fair to everybody involved. That's all I'm saying.
I was just referring to the Dáil debate.
Okay, but I mean, it's still question time. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, but I'm just, in the context of my question, which is to deal with establishing a mechanism.
It's about asking questions and getting answers.
On the public record, we know from the public, it's not an allegation, I'm not making the allegation at all in relation to this. Deputy Adams himself has said that this is the way the Prison IRA dealt with these issues, and that it was unfortunate, and that it was a pity that it happened that way, and then tried to say that it was because of the lack of policing at the time and all of that. But in these cases, we're talking about much more recent times, both in the Maria Cahill case and in the Paddy McGahan case. And I would make the point, and put it to you, Taoiseach, the reason why a mechanism is required, there is a lot of fear. These people that come forward are afraid for a long, long time. And they're afraid of the IRA and the IRA community.